All right, here we are again. Uh, Good to see you out there, YouTube. We're going to do another episode today. Um, Today, we are going to talk about microphones specifically, just microphones, okay? We're going to try to teach you a little bit so you can make an educated decision. A little bit about, I'm doing the homework. Some of this I may read. Um about microphones in general, the different types of microphones, what they're good for, uh, their beauty and such. To me, there is three. There's two basic types of microphones. You have condenser mics and dynamic mics, but then you have three types of microphones, if that makes any sense. In my book, you have, especially when you're talking about what we're looking at doing, you have headphone microphones, you have condenser microphones, and you have dynamic microphones. Because I kind of have to, even though headphone microphones are a type of dynamic mic, they're omnidirectional. They're as sensitive as all get out, and the whole goal of them is to try to get absolutely as much sound as they can receive, so that they can hear the person talking on the other end of the phone. It doesn't bode well for karaoke. Some bode well better than others, but it's there. That's pretty obvious that it's there. Uh, I'm gonna adjust this stand just a wee bit and see if I can get it more on my face. There we go. Got me a camera stand and everything going on here today. Yeah, it's a little crooked, isn't it? A little crooked. There we go. Better? Maybe? Come down a little bit? Alright. Anyway, so I'm speaking to you right now on a not a dynamic, a condenser microphone. Now, let's show you an example of all three, and you've seen some of these before if you've seen any of my previous videos, but we'll do it again. Because that's all we're going to talk about. We're not going to talk about preamps or phantom power or anything like that, other than just to note that certain ones require some of that stuff. This, which you've seen this before, this is the Tonor BM 700. It's made by Tonor. Pretty good microphone. Actually, I kind of like it. It's not a bad mic. It's not a real expensive mic, but it is a pretty mic. And it does a really good job. It really does. People that have seen me on Smule before know that I have used this microphone quite a bit, considerably. It was my first. It's what started this whole venture of YouTube and all that, because I was having trouble finding information on how to do this and set this up to where Smule, where I was using real microphones and stuff on Smule, and there wasn't a whole great deal of information on that. There's some companies like iRig, which makes the iRig Pre that I have one of. There are companies that are out there like that that are actually making microphones specifically made for phones, but I can't do that. I'm much too complicated of a person. Anyway, I like toys anyway. If you've seen anything about me, I like geeky. I'm a geek. I'm a little bit of a geek. I like geeky stuff. So so you have the condenser microphone, as I stated. Tonor's one. The one that I'm talking to you on is one. It's actually a little better. It's a Marantz Professional condenser microphone. These are both put out a cardioid pattern, which in the professional world, what you're typically going to see condenser microphones is in studios, for singing. In the professional world, stages usually have this right here. This is a dynamic mic, and it's because they are more portable. They're also more durable than a condenser microphone. That's why they use these typically on stage performances. Now, not always. There are some artists that are out there that insist on using condenser microphones for that. So that's your second type of microphone. Now, we're going to go a little bit into detail into each one of these, but I want to introduce the three types. And then the last type that I'm going to talk about a little bit, because I'm really covering it under dynamic, but is, and you've all seen that little doodad, okay? That is your headphone microphone, what usually goes in right here. That actually came from these headphones that I have on. And if you've seen any of my other videos regarding headphones and what have you, you also know that this has a replaceable cord, which a lot of your wired and some of your wireless over-the-ear headphones nowadays have replaceable cords, which is good. That means your headphones last longer, and all you have to do is replace the cord itself. A little bit of smoke for the effect, you know, get the effect in. Anyway, so let's read a little bit. We'll talk a little bit about. The first one we're gonna talk about is the condenser microphone. Okay, now it requires power. We all know that. Anywhere from a minimum, I believe, of 12 volts, I believe is what they say, but the standard is 48 volt phantom power, and you'll hear people talk about 48 volt phantom power. But I'm going to read a little bit about this from a website called Neumann.com. That's NEUMANN.com. So you can check this out for yourself if you want to. Okay. The question is, what is a condenser microphone? While dynamic microphones are popular for stage use due to their rugged construction, condenser microphones have always been preferred type for studio recording, and here's why. Now, what did I just said that same thing. You know, typically you're going to find condenser microphones in studio, dynamic mics on stage, and that's dynamic mics are usually used on stage due to their rugged construction. Okay. And then it goes in and it talks about the actual construction, and you can reference their website, Neumann.com, if you want to actually see how they're constructed and all that good stuff. It's actually pretty neat. Okay. I'm not going to go into all of exactly how they're constructed. What I will tell you is they are basically a diaphragm. Okay. Condenser microphones are it's like a diaphragm. Think of like, okay, when you look at a speaker, right? It's like a diaphragm. It's like a flexible piece of material that will flex. Well, these are a metallized diaphragm that are in a condenser microphone, okay? They have to be able to conduct electricity. And as you send that power, this is why they require the 48 volts. As you send that power through that, the sound in that diaphragm gets converted in its movement. It works like a capacitor. Matter of fact, some of the British actually call them capacitor microphones. Okay. They will actually start flexing and creating, turning that sound into voltage, which people say, well, why in the world, if it's turning it into voltage, why is it? Well, it's kind of hard to explain. It's how sine waves and all that. You start getting into real scientific stuff and all that on that stuff. But the way a capacitor works, you add power to it and it amplifies the power, and it actually sends out the signal and condenses that signal so that things actually work more properly. Well, you're kind of doing the same thing with a condenser microphone. You're condensing that sound, amplifying that sound, and sending it down the line. So that's kind of how they work. And because of that, they have a tendency to be more accurate. Okay. To put it specifically, this is what they say on their website. Due to their low mass diaphragm, condenser microphones have superior transient response. Okay. Now, to put it in layman's terms, they're more accurate. Okay. They're quicker, they respond faster, that's the gist of what a condenser microphone is about. Okay. Now, again, in some sort of layman's terms, we're going to talk a little bit about the dynamic microphone. Which I have this thing here, which y'all, I've got a review out on this. Check my other videos. I just got this thing. It's not too bad. It's a cheap mic. I bought it at Target, but it's not horrible so far. It's not too bad. Dynamic microphones do not require 48 volts. They do not require any external power per se. They will operate off of whatever voltages that they're being plugged into. Okay, regarding low voltages, 1 to 3 volts. Typically whatever's coming out of an iPad, an iPhone, Android phone, whatever, your smartphone or your tablet. They will operate right off of that. And that's because of the way they're constructed. They actually, you got to kind of think of it, they're not digital. Okay? But you kind of have to think of it in that manner. Think of it like a filament rather than a full diaphragm that's absorbing, that's sensitive. And as you sing, that filament vibrates. Okay, and whatever the power is coming in and going out, and I don't know what their power restrictions are. I'm sure there's a point, like I'm sure that if you turned on a 48 volt phantom power supply on a dynamic mic, it may not be the wisest thing to do. You may fry it. I haven't ever tried it. That might be something that we have to experiment with at some point down the line when I've got a little bit of money to waste on maybe a phantom power supply, maybe a mic or something like that, but I'm not doing it with this right now. But I will tell you, back to what we were talking about. So, because it's not something that requires electricity. It doesn't work like a capacitor. A capacitor actually requires electricity to operate. You have to feed it some form of electricity, which is why the condenser microphone works the way it does, because it works like a capacitor. It's actually taking that energy and multiplying it, or whatever. This is picking up the sound through vibrations. I haven't quite figured out the pattern. The box didn't give much any detail to its patterning, anything like that. It's made for a karaoke machine, okay? But I will tell you this. I've tried it in a couple things. You'll see a video later. If this microphone is not like in this range within a foot of you, it's hard to hear you. Unlike this condenser microphone that you're hearing me, I've got the volume up a little bit, so it's a little more sensitive than what it could be. Okay, it's not up all the way. I mean, it can get a lot louder and be more sensitive. But from what I can tell on this dynamic mic, if you're not singing pretty much right into the end of this thing within 6 inches or so, maybe a foot, whatever, of the end of this thing, it gets pretty bad. I mean, pretty quiet, pretty quick as you move away from it, which is also good. That's not a bad deal. And those are pretty tough mics, from what I understand. Those dynamic mics, and as I stated, that's the reason why typically stage musicians usually use dynamic. When they go into the studio, they usually use a condenser microphone. So those are kind of the situation with all the microphones, what's out there, what you can expect from all of them. You can make your own decision. Me personally, I don't mind any of them too much. I'd much prefer of course, a dynamic, and we've been through this, a dynamic or a condenser microphone. Condenser's really my favorite. I still use the condenser microphones all the time. I really only bought that thing for review, but when I go out of town, I may very well be singing on it, because it is portable, it's durable, it's easy to carry. There's tons of other things that you get into with microphones. If you'll notice, and the camera that I'm talking to you has this as well. You see how, like this one, these are condenser microphones that are built into this camera. This is a little Sony, that little Sony HDR MV1. The Zoom Q8 also has similar microphones, only better, I think. But you can see those condenser microphones. There's two of them. They're stereo mics. One points one direction, the other one points the other direction. These are what they call bidirectional dash omnidirectional style mics. And that's because it's a video recorder. It's supposed to pick up a lot of sound from all the way around for the purposes of shooting a video, much like the one that I'm speaking to you on. There's not many cameras and things out there from the research that I did. That's why I have in my possession probably the only two cameras that I could find out there that had without spending an arm and a leg, that had decent audio quality. And that was because I didn't want always to have to carry around microphones and everything else. I've got a microphone hooked up right now as we speak, and I'll prefer to have that. But if I'm out and about, if I'm driving down the road, if I'm out of town and I've got my camera with me and I want to do y'all a quick video, I don't necessarily want to have to be breaking out a whole bunch of equipment and everything else. I just want to, handheld it, go at it, and still have decent quality audio. So I wanted to find some cameras that had some decent quality audio that also had the ability of external microphone inputs. But I didn't want to spend an arm and a leg. These are the two cameras that fit the bill. I did a lot of research on it, and those were the two cameras that fit the bill. The Sony HDR MV1, the Zoom Q8. These were both, from what I could tell, and so far, I'll be honest with you, I prefer to use the Zoom Q8, even though it doesn't have Wi-Fi built into it. The Sony HDR MV1 does have Wi-Fi built into it, but I'm going to tell you, it's a pain in the butt. The screen is on the side of the camera, as you can see right here. Okay, it doesn't flip out, it doesn't move, it stays on the side of the camera. So if you don't have your phone connected to it and you're sitting here, you don't know what's going on the screen. Somebody could be walking up behind you going, and you really don't know until after you're done. I really don't like that. I like having a monitor. I like being able to monitor my audio. I like being able to monitor my video. Which is why I use headphones when I'm talking to y'all. Plus, y'all are used to seeing me with headphones on anyway if you've seen me on Smule. So, hey, what difference does it make? But I like the monitoring capability. I'm doing all these videos by myself. No help from my children, my spouse, nothing. And so I think that I do better when I can monitor what everything sounds like in the beginning, so I don't have to adjust. That's less adjusting and stuff that I have to do later. But that's my own preference. You can, if you've got, if you want to take a little more time, or you've got people to help you or whatever, you can do like some of these other people that you see on YouTube, where a good number of them don't use headphones, and they don't use a lot of things like that. But hey, to each his own, right? Do what you want. Anyway, there's a lot of accessories for microphones. We'll get back to microphones a little bit. Everything from stands. This is a tabletop stand for a condenser microphone. I haven't even tried to see if let's try this out. Try this out. Yeah, it doesn't go that way. Let's try feeding a cord through it, I guess. Try feeding a cord through it. Try that out. Give me a second. Come on, you sucker. Why are you being a pain in the butt? Hell. Boy, this cord is being a real booger. Okay. The only thing it stinks about doing this, if you do this, is you got to feed the entire cord down through it. But it might work for, it's kind of pushed up on there, if you'll notice. This ain't really a mic for a mic stand for a dynamic mic. It's really a mic stand for a condenser mic. You can see the body difference, size difference. Condenser mics are short and fat, and I'm not talking about any people, so nobody get offended. And dynamic mics are tall and skinny. Again, nobody get offended. I'm not talking about people. I'm talking about microphones. Anyway, so the stand, the connection for the microphones, for dynamic mics and condenser mics, a lot of times are a little different. Most of your condenser mics, if you'll notice, they're also their stands are, and we've kind of seen that before, where everything is like spring, it's got like a springy material, for vibration or any other kind of ambient sound on the outside of it, to try to reduce all of that right there. If you were hitting it direct, see, it's a lot louder, and that's because those rubber band things, the springs, whatever, that kind of help control that. They keep it down, understandably so, and rightfully so, if you will. Dynamic mics, the stands are usually hard mounted. It's usually like a little clamp type thing that clamps onto it, and that's because dynamic mics, let's face it, they're not as sensitive as condenser microphones, which is why most of the time studios want to use, and a lot of times why on stage and stuff they want to use dynamics. Other than durability, as far as sound, dynamic mics not being as sensitive aren't going to pick up as much ambience. That can be good, that can be bad. It's good for on stage, but if you've got a quiet environment to begin with, then why not use a condenser microphone, because it actually picks up more of your voice. Okay, it gets the highs, the lows, the mids, and everything that's in your voice to give you a fuller voice. Dynamic mics do have a tendency to be just a tinge deeper in sound. Also, from what I've read, musicians have a tendency to use dynamic mics more often for instruments, whereas a lot of their vocals, they prefer to use a condenser microphone. So that's a little bit about. Of course, you also have, this is a, as I talked about before, a wind sleeve, wind cover, wind foamy, whatever you want to call it, wind sock. Then you have a pop filter. Now, pop filter. Okay, the purpose of a pop filter is supposed to be so whenever I come up here and I'm singing or whatever, if I'm saying Peter picked a peck of pickled peppers. If Peter picked a peck of pickled peppers, how many pickled peppers did Peter Piper pick? See how you have the P's, right? If Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, you can see how it actually almost, it has more of a to it whenever I'm saying P. And that's because now, and this microphone, I think, is better about not doing it as bad as like the toner. And I'm not putting the toner down, but because everybody makes their microphones a little different. They have a little different material. They have a little bit different labor, quality, all that good stuff. But with the filter in place, it doesn't have as much of a whenever it kind of subdues it. It puts it down a little bit. So that's kind of the purpose of that accessory. Stands, yeah, you have everything from these little desktop stands, as I showed you, to desk mounted stands. So like what I'm using here, where if you'll notice it's on a spring. Okay, it's kind of like those old lamps with the light on it, and you hook it to the edge of the desk, and you can stretch that thing all over and all that good stuff, and point the light right where you want it. Well, that's another type of mic stand they have available now. The stands themselves, well, this particular stand, I guess. Well, no. See, what you have actually is you have a stand this is the stand, just three little tripod legs, just that you can set on the deal. This is the mount, this piece. Okay. Now, same kind of thing with this stand here. That mount will come off, and you can put a different type of mount. So if you want to use, I'm sure they sell ones that are made for condenser microphone. I mean, for dynamic microphones, and if that's what you want to get is a dynamic mic. But the stand that you're looking at is one made for a condenser microphone. Look and see if they have the clip, the clip type. Those clip types are made for dynamic mics. You might even Google dynamic mic mount, clip mount, or mic stand mount, or whatever. Most of those connections are universal. Not all. They do have bushings available for some of the smaller ones to fit on the bigger ones, like this one that I'm using. The stand itself has a smaller shaft than what the mount actually accepts, so it's got like a bushing that goes in there. This one here has a bushing. That other one, that tabletop mount or stand. Then you can get into real nice mic stands that, you know, have the arm that come out, you know, stuff like that. Or you can have the one that has that's a straight pole that comes up with the mic sits on top of it. You can get into all kinds of stuff if you want to. You can get it pretty fancy. You know, that's fun stuff. But I'm gonna, in every video I have to do this, and the reason why I have to do this, because it's the number one question that I have received, and that is about that doohickey right there. Okay, this is a StarTech.com. I'm getting no kickbacks for saying this. I probably should be. I probably need to write the company and go, hey, dude, go check out my videos. And just about every single one of them, I'm talking about your device. I do swear by this specific one. If you go to Amazon and you type in StarTech.com splitter, there's 100. Okay? It's this specific one. Take a good look at it so you know exactly what it looks like. I mean, you can see it actually even splits up and shows you in real good detail headphones, microphone, headphones, microphone, headphone, microphone. There's your 2 ports, headphone, microphone. This, I'm fixing to buy me one or two more of those here pretty soon. Um, that way, I've got one I can throw in my on the road bag. I can throw it. Have me an extra one. I can have one in here. That way, I've got enough of those to go around and last me a while. I don't have to worry about it if they get discontinued or something. If y'all keep buying them, they'll keep them around. If you quit buying them, they'll go out of business. They'll, disappear, and then we're going to have a hard time finding something that we really like. So far, this is my experience. I've had awesome luck with the little StarTech.com splitter. But yeah, that's about all I can talk about on microphones today. So we're going to edit this sucker up and try to get it posted to YouTube. Again, before that happens, let me say one thing. I know we didn't talk a whole lot about these today, but it's not for me. They're great for talking on the phone. They're okay in a pinch. So if you are out somewhere and all you have is headphones that have a microphone on it, and you want to sing a song, you can, they're great for that. I swear by a real microphone and what it does for you as the artist, and what it does for people as your listeners. And I'm not the greatest singer in the world, but I'm going to tell you something. I truly believe that I've gotten better since I started doing this, because you can hear yourself better. You're not paying attention to background noises and things like that. You're actually hearing yourself sing. When you go back to listen to yourself, you can improve on your own sound. I've had a couple of people in my group tell me, that I have done exactly that I have gotten better. So anyway, I am done for today. I've rattled your ear off long enough. We'll see you in the funny papers.